Good afternoon, Packers fans. Aaron Nagler here with your Packers Daily Chat, coming to you live on the Cheesehead TV social channels. Good to talk to you from New York City. That's right, I am back home after a very late arrival last night. Always good to be back in New York. Had a phenomenal time in New Orleans, as I stated there on some social media channels of mine. I absolutely adore that city. I had a ball all week long, seeing so many folks in the industry that I haven't seen in a very long time, but also just exploring the city, both downtown, uptown, all over the place. Just a town that I never, ever, ever want for a good time. You're always up for it. And the way they welcome everyone from everywhere. Um, just never had a bad experience in New Orleans. Had a ball. Super Bowl was what it was. I will admit I had a great time watching it. I know your mileage may vary, but good times. Good to be back home, though. Good to be back in the snow and the cold. Um, Now we have a couple weeks until the combine. I'll be heading out to Indianapolis for about a week and revisiting everybody from around the league. The combine is obviously a great time to reconnect with folks, coaches, although not as many as there used to be, personnel folks, agents, marketing guys, some prospects. Always a enlightening time in Indy. Um, and then, of course, talking to you guys each and every day, Packers fans worldwide here on the Cheesehead TV YouTube page. Love that you guys are so interactive each and every day. I really appreciate it. I know things start to, maybe lose steam a little bit here as some people really tune out of the offseason chatter, the free agency, the draft, and what have you, and maybe kind of resurface once training camp comes back around. And I completely understand that. I was thinking about that on my flight home about how when I was growing up, it used to very much be end of football season. You kind of really out of sight, out of mind. As much as we love the Packers, and we loved the Packers, really didn't kind of resurface until the draft. And of course, you were interested in who they selected and things like that. But yeah, you didn't really have the kind of 24-hour, 365 coverage of the league the way it exists now. And I do think somewhat, just a little bit. I try to make sure that we keep it real here at Cheesehead TV, and we don't go too far down the clickbait stuff and sensationalize things. If they're worth talking about, well, obviously we'll be talking about them, and that includes something that kind of percolated throughout the Packers blogosphere, as it were, today, with Jason Wilde reporting a source close to Davante Adams indicated that he is open to returning to the Green Bay Packers. And as someone on Twitter responded, breaking news, football player open to continuing to play football. And obviously that's an easy sarcastic quip. And I, for one, do think the likelihood of Davante Adams landing back in Green Bay is fairly remote. But I will say, you should never say never. If there's one thing we've learned, both with Brian Gutekunst and now probably with Davante, I think there's been some lessons learned here. I think both sides would be amiable to at least exploring the idea. Now, of course, as of right now, moment that we are speaking, Davante is a member of the New York Jets. So this would have to be either a trade or the Jets would have to release him. I think the latter is probably more likely, but we shall see. I don't believe for a moment that Brian Gutekunst would completely shut the door. Where I find it difficult to kind of hop on board and say, oh, this is gaining momentum or this should certainly happen is the whole impetus that, Davante basically had for when he left Green Bay. Now, we know he wanted to play with his buddy Carr, but he also talked quite extensively about playing closer to home and his family being able to come see him then in Vegas, which is why I tend to think coming back to Green Bay feels like it would be unfinished business in a sense, but he certainly would be positioning himself to hopefully, get back to producing some really significant numbers year in and year out towards the end of his career, however many years that might be, which is something I think he didn't see when he kind of not forced his way out, but he wanted out. Now that's pretty clear, right? Didn't really believe Jordan Love was going to be that guy. I think he's, come around on Jordan Love. And I think that should, tell you something from the outside looking in. And I know Jordan Love still has plenty of detractors, but, I do believe Davante has seen something in Jordan that he would really benefit from as a player looking to probably solidify his case for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Now, is that available elsewhere? Yeah, of course. And that's why I get back to, the whole kind of narrative about him wanting to play closer to home would lead me to believe something like, the Chargers being a possibility there in Los Angeles on the West Coast. And they've got a really talented young quarterback, a great head coach, offensive system, etc. It's not to say he wouldn't have those things in Green Bay, but man, towards the end, it really was apparent that Davante was a bit of a different breed. He got a lot of truck drivers and kind of salt of the earth folks there in Green Bay, and Davante with his very noticeable sports car driving around Green Bay, Wisconsin, just a little different, And if he wanted to get back to that kind of, let's call it hermetic lifestyle, as opposed to being in Vegas or being in New York or being back out in LA, that would be a pretty significant shift from what he's had for the last few years. Not saying again that it's impossible, but it would be noticeable. That all of that said, I love the idea. I think he'd help immensely, obviously, on the offensive side of the ball. Great guy to watch as far as if you're a young receiver doing it day in and day out. I've never seen anyone more competitive in practice than Davante Adams. I mean, every one-on-one, every team rep, every single day of training camp, every day that we were able to watch him in Green Bay in a practice setting, never seen a guy so competitive. And again, I do think that would be an excellent, template for those young guys to try and mold themselves around and after. I think there's plenty of reasons that it makes sense to bring him back. But I do think, there will be other places on offer. And I just still find it pretty unlikely that he ends up back with the Packers. But never say never. Crazier stuff has happened in this National Football League of ours. There's no doubt about that. Hello to everybody in the comments section. Hope you're all doing well. Good to see you guys. Willing to see what you all got to say right now. Let me give a shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy sports made easy. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Go to prizepicks.com and use code CHTV. Spend $5 on lineups and get $50 instantly. PrizePicks is available in 43 different states, most importantly, including Wisconsin. Get on it, folks. The link is in the description of this video. Remember, use code CHTV. All right, folks, what do we got? What you guys got for me today? What's up, Mike Witt? Hey, Nags, that Super Bowl was something else. I had 2 observations. 1, both of the Eagles' lines are unbelievable. 2, Travis Kelce looks old and tired. Yeah, Travis Kelce certainly didn't seem like an explosive asset for the Chiefs' offense. Let's put it that way. And there have been a couple of people, and I think Theo Ash was the first to kind of point this out that I've seen anyway, where there are plays where legit the entire offensive line for the Chiefs is coming off the ball at the snap, and Travis is still in his 3-point stance. I mean, it's a hair second thing, but it makes all the difference in the world when you're trying to block that Eagles front. I don't know if he'll return. Obviously, he's one of the best, arguably the best to ever do it at the position. But yeah, it really does feel like it's time. That shirt certainly was not a great look for him in that contest. Now, I will say the Eagles have made a lot of guys look old and slow, but yeah, it certainly was noticeable on Sunday. Ed, what's going on, man? I don't ask for much, just an awesome defense and an overpowering offense. I can even live with 2 in a row instead of a 3-peat. Ed, that's so magnanimous of you. And that's the frustrating part of being an NFL fan, is having to wait as long as we do with the longest offseason in pro sports. And it's only just begun. I was thinking about that today, talking team needs with Tyler Brook on the latest edition of the Draft Industrial Complex, which is up here on the YouTube channel. You can check it out or find it on your podcast platform of choice. But we went through team needs for, the entire first round, but pre-free agency. So some of that will change. But man, I was thinking we got such a long way to go. We got re-signings to do, tags to be applied. Free agency will start. And then we'll still be like, a month away from the draft. It's crazy how much we have to wait. And then you've got OTAs, mini camps, and then the little June break before we get back to training camp, and that's another month plus preseason. Whew, baby, that's a long way to go. Klaus, how are you, man? Hey, Nags, we stay because your content is good and you are good company, fun, and knowledgeable, and the Bears still suck. Well, I appreciate that, Klaus. And facts only. Rai, how are you, man? Who won more one-on-ones in practice, Jair or Adams? That's an excellent question. I would give the nod to Adams, but they were great battles regardless. I think Jair really kind of stepped up his game when he was going against Adams. I do think at times over the course of the last couple training camps, you've seen, his, let's say, interest level rise and fall. But whenever Adams was out there, he would balls to the wall, be giving it everything he's got. Now, that said, I think Adams got him more often than not, but simply because of the nature of, especially in the one-on-one drills, you've got a two-way go off the line of scrimmage. You can go and do anything. The advantage kind of goes to the receiver in that regard. And when you're talking about a guy like Davante and his release off the line of scrimmage, that's a tough assignment. But that was always a highlight of camp, and we never got enough of it. You would maybe get like 2 or 3 of those reps each day, and you just like salivate. It was so great. Simitovich, what's up, man? This isn't Nags. There's no beard. How dare you? Simitovich, it's the end of the season. Playoffs are done. Playoff beard comes off. It's just the way it works, man. I don't make the rules. Actually, I do. I totally just made that up on the spot. Jocelyn, how are you? Today, I took my first step down a long, dark, and lonely road. I completed a mock draft simulator. Jocelyn, welcome. Welcome to the dark side. Look, I say it all the time. Mock drafts are fun. They're great entertainment. And they're a pretty decent, or they can be a pretty decent conversation starter or conversation driver, as it were. Just don't ever take it too seriously. People get really bent out of shape sometimes when they're watching and reading that stuff online. And man, it's just entertainment. It's just filling the void until we get to the real thing. Don't worry about it, Jocelyn. Just keep it in perspective. Ryan, how are you, man? Thanks for the super chat. I'd like Green Bay to honor Sharpe when they played Detroit. That playoff game started the return to glory for Green Bay. Ryan, I think that's an awesome idea. Your one worry, of course, is that Detroit has beaten the hell out of the Packers the last couple of times they come to Lambeau. I hate the idea of like having a Favre night when they retired Favre's number and the Bears beat them up on Thanksgiving night. Now, that said, any time is fine because Sterling is an all-time great. It would be great. Just the symmetry and the, symbolism of his big walk-off touchdown against the Lions in the playoffs to win their first playoff game in forever. That monster play from Favre, who I would think would probably be in attendance, which would be insane and kind of mind-blowing, especially if Sharpe's name will probably be right next to Brett's on the facade. So, yeah, I do not doubt for a moment they will do something this season. And yeah, I'm with you. It'd be sweet to have it against Detroit. Joey, thanks for the super chat, man. I hope Musgrave can make a big leap. I'm with you, dude. And where that has to happen. Now, obviously, number one is he's got to stay on the field, right? Way too much time on the sideline. Can't make the club in the tub. What's best ability is availability. Choose your coaching cliche, but yeah, he's got to stay on the field, right? There's no way he's going to get better. No way he's going to be able to contribute more if he can't stay on the field. Now, that said, I'd take you back to the start of training camp 2 years ago where his rookie season that summer, they drew up a ton of plays for him. Like they were clearly working on getting him the football. Lots of sets where they would have a bunch and clear out and he'd come underneath on some shallow cross, try and get him in space, get him lined up, running away from a linebacker, use that speed. They didn't really do a ton of that last summer. In fact, he was somewhat invisible last training camp and pretty inconsistent. I would love to see them get back to designing stuff for him. And I know, obviously, Tucker Kraft is your tight end one. But I do think there's enough upside and ability still there with Musgrave that you can really cause some problems utilizing him in all sorts of different ways. But for me, what really has to occur is he's got to improve when it comes to the physical side of the game, i.e., any type of blocking he is asked to do, whether that's in line in a traditional sense, whether that's coming across formation, doing some of the move stuff, uh, even working out of the, I form up back in the I form, kind of a move tight end situation again. All of that though has to be better, and he has to be stouter at the point of attack because there are too many plays where you put on the film and you watch him either in the run game or even in pass protection where he's just getting bullied, and it becomes problematic as a play caller or a game designer where you want to be able to utilize him. But if the only way he's effective and the only time you can really kind of put him on the field is when you're calling a play for him, or you're at least having him as one of the options as a tight end going out in a route. Well, that's easy information for the defensive coordinator to take advantage of, right? If you become so specialized that we can't trust you to block, so we're only utilizing you as a pass catcher, well, that's a pretty decent tip. If you're the DC up in the box and you see Musgrave out there, well, I know they ain't going to trust him to block, so we're probably dealing with at least one, if not two tight ends out. It's just something where that aspect of his game has to improve, and it's two things too. It's not just, he's got to work on his technique, he's got to bulk up a little bit too, I think. But whatever the case, that has to improve for him to get on the field more and to become an effective part of this offense. That is, I think, a big key is not being able to, not being pigeonholed. If they can just get him playing better in the physical aspect of the game, then he can start to make some noise. Raha, what's up, man? I liked all three of our running backs this year. Who's the odd man out when Lloyd is healthy? That's an excellent question. I'm fascinated to watch that play out because you cannot deny the jump that Emmanuel Wilson took this year. Outstanding in almost every aspect of the game that he was asked to participate in. Really did an excellent job. Yards after contact, excellent vision, became a real weapon in the screen game and in the passing game, though for whatever reason, really they seem to get away from that later part of the year. And for me, Brooks was every bit as effective as far as, taking Josh Jacobs off the field in certain situations. You didn't lose a ton in you didn't lose anything in pass protection. You didn't lose a ton as far as you could still churn out some tough yards with Brooks in there. Obviously he's not Josh Jacobs, but he's a powerful back. And again, in pass protection, he was absolutely lights out. So it's going to be hard. I think that's one of those fun kind of competitions that we'll watch throughout training camp. My suspicion would be it would end up being Brooks being the odd man out, but there's a long way to go. And things can change real quick, and a guy can really seize a moment. And who knows, man? Maybe Lloyd comes in and just never does it, never really turns it on, never becomes what they thought he'd be. And I obviously don't wish that. And I really do believe in him, and I think he can be a big, dangerous component in this offense. But nothing's a given, especially with how much time he missed his rookie year, essentially a redshirt season. You never really know how he's going to respond. Don't know how he's going to fit in the pro game in this system with this offense. Long way to go there. That's one of the competitions at camp, no doubt. Joe, how are you, man? If Davante is at the point in career where he has achieved everything he wants but a ring, where would the Packers rank? Does he need a ring for the Hall of Fame? I don't think he needs a ring to be considered for the Hall of Fame. It certainly would help, unfortunately. I don't think that should matter, but it always seems to. Yeah, as far as where it would rank, I mean, only Davante can really answer that, right? I mean, I mentioned the Chargers as a possibility. They lost a playoff game just like the Packers did last year, right? They're entering year 2 of Harbaugh's program. That certainly would seem to be an ascending spot that you could land and try and go win a ring, although it is the Chargers, but you're close to home, maybe, somebody like the 49ers, if they want to go star chasing and add to their arsenal, so to speak, that would certainly be an attractive place, I would think, for Davante. Though with Ayuk coming back, who knows if they're committed to doing that kind of thing. But yeah, I think Packers will be right there. I do think the perception of the Packers maybe in the league is a little bit different than the fan base. But again, that's something only Davante could really answer. Mike, thanks again, man. Very happy Sterling got in the Hall of Fame. My favorite Packer growing up. That being said, I still can't stand his loudmouth brother. Never did. Hello, Mike. I don't know, man. I love Shannon Sharpe. You guys, your mileage may vary, but I think he's hilarious. I loved him when he was in the league. One of my all-time favorite NFL films clips is when the Broncos were absolutely blowing out the Patriots, and he's on the sideline with the phone calling, quote unquote, calling the president to bring in the National Guard because they were whooping up on the Patriots. I don't know. I think he's hilarious, man. I got no problem with Shannon. Ryan, thanks for the super chat, man. 47 days until the Brewers home opener. No doubt. I actually looked at tickets today. Holy cow. I hate the Yankees. I hate the Yankees. Have I talked about how much I hate the Yankees? Tickets for opening day for like nosebleeds are like $600. It's ridiculous, man. Although I did go on StubHub and found some lesser priced things in nosebleeds, so I might do that. Actually, I'll probably just go up and on opening day and just find a scalper. But man, can't wait. Cannot wait for the Brewers to open up against the Yankees and whoop up on those boys in pinstripes. Gonna be a lot of fun. Corey Krenz, how are you, man? Why isn't Sean Jones and Santana Dotson in the Packers Hall of Fame? This was brought up at my work today, and I said Nagler probably knows. I thought Santana was. Maybe I can be corrected here, but I thought Santana went in a few years ago, but maybe not. As to if they're not, I have no idea why. They should be. They're certainly, a huge part of that Super Bowl championship and the number one defense that season. No question about it. Joe, how are you, man? Can Musgrave make a big leap and stay on his feet? Get it? Because he would leap and then be on his feet. That's tough, man. Mike, thanks again. I know we got bigger needs, but if Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State, starts falling, do the Packers think about drafting him? Him and Tucker could be Chewy and Jackson of this era. Mike, you could knock me over with a feather if the Packers took a tight end in the first round. Funnily enough, I just talked about Tyler Warren and where he might fit in the first round because I do think he'll probably go in the first round with Tyler Brook on Draft Industrial Complex earlier today. So make sure you check that out. But man, they've just invested in Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, and I don't think they're ready to give up on Luke Musgrave. They've certainly got a hit on their hands with Tucker Kraft. I'd be very, very surprised. And I'm not saying that he's not worthy of the pick. I think he is going to be a very good pro, but I just don't see the Packers utilizing a first-round selection where they really, most times, not always, but usually stick to their kind of premium position mantra. I just don't see tight end fitting that bill. What else we got here? Matthew, how are you, man? The Eagles should have lost to us week 1. Then we had a shot in the wild card game, in my opinion. All ifs, buts, and maybes. That said, I think we are not far off. Matthew, I agree, but for a different reason. You should never kind of base that off of one opponent, even if it is the Super Bowl champion, right? It's such a game of matchups that just because you match up well with this particular team or can operate in a certain way against one team doesn't mean that, that's who you are or that's how you should proceed. I always think back to Ron Wolf, selecting 3 defensive backs in a row coming off Randy Moss's rookie year, because Moss was such a problem and so kind of dynamic. And my God, how are we going to stop this guy? And Wolf even admitted later on that was a mistake. It was an attempt at an overcorrection to focus so much on one team and or player. Certainly the Packers are not as far away as I think some Packers fans believe. And yes, they certainly played the Eagles tough. There's no doubt about it. But just it's the word of caution of that's one team, and there are lots of different styles, lots of different approaches, lots of different ways of winning. That just because the transitive property is rarely, because you beat this team means and they lost to that other team, that means you should beat this team. It's rarely the case in the NFL. Cheeto, what's going on, man? Loving the fresh middle management look, Nax. Hear anything about Ireland? I'm seeing different things lately. Cheeto, I mentioned this on Twitter, I believe, Monday night. That yes, I certainly have heard some, let's say, cold water being thrown on the notion of the Packers playing the Steelers in Ireland. My sense is the Packers really don't want to go. And nothing is official yet, other than the fact that the Steelers are definitely playing in Ireland. Their opponent has not been determined. And I know there was the initial kind of report like a month or so ago that the Steelers were headed there. And hard upon that report came the report from the Sports Illustrated Steelers writer that the Packers would be the opponent. And that is certainly has been echoed by a few different kind of entities and places. But just like I said, just talking to a few different folks with the Packers, nothing's set yet. And like I said, they really don't want to go, which, given the last 2 games they've played internationally, I'm not surprised. Steven, how are you, man? Based on interviews, I feel like Love overestimates his running ability. He has legs, but I don't see 12-esque ability to extend plays. That's interesting, Steven. I don't think you really necessarily have to be outside the pocket looking to throw downfield. You can make the numbers problematic for the defense, though, especially if they're in man coverage. And we're not talking about needing to get outside the pocket and make a 50-yard dime throw to Jordy Nelson on the sideline, which, of course, is what we saw from Rodgers often in his prime. But if you are getting outside the pocket or navigating that pressure and it's 3rd and 8 and everyone's covered and you're able to convert and extend a drive with your legs, that's a win. I don't think, to your point, I don't think he's overestimating it. I think he's just recognizing, hell, especially after watching Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl and indeed kind of all year, your running ability as a quarterback gives you not a numbers advantage, but it changes the numbers game for the defense as far as having to account for you. I just think it's smart football for Jordan to recognize that, yeah, his legs can be an asset. Doesn't necessarily mean he has to do it the same way Rodgers did it. It's just that's another kind of arrow in your quiver as a player to take advantage of the defense. That's how I read that. Mike, thanks again, man. My draft crush is Mike Green, defensive end for Marshall. That's so funny you say that's the 3rd time I've seen him mentioned today. I have not watched a lick of his tape, but God knows I am excited to do so after hearing so much about him literally today. Big Al, how are you, man? What's good, Nags? What is the next step for Jordan Love's development? For me, his leadership and being more consistent. Oh, I don't question his leadership at all. I know Matt talked about wanting him to be a tad more vocal, towards the end of the year. He mentioned that, but the consistency is everything. For me, that is the key. It's no different than what we saw from Favre early in his tenure, where he was all over the map and made some of the most boneheaded plays you'd ever see and have really frustrating stretches. But then when he found that consistency, that's when they really took off as an offense. He ascended as a player, started winning MVPs. And I'm not saying, if Jordan becomes more consistent, he's going to win MVPs. But you saw how effective he can be in this offense down the stretch in 2023. I don't think it comes out of the gate like that next year. I think he's got to find that rhythm that seems so kind of important to his game. But finding it and maintaining it and running things with the offense consistently. And for me, the huge area where he and the offense really need to improve, where they really took a noticeable step back, was on 3rd down. 3rd down in 2023, he was absolutely incredible. I mean, especially for a first-year starter. And that really took a step back in 2024. And now some of that was him, some of that's the receivers, some of that's the game plan, etc. But that's something where that consistency, if he can find that again, that's when his game will really start to take off. And look, that's what separates the really good to great players and quarterbacks from the guys who never really make it, right? And certainly no one should think that Jordan Love has arrived. He's still got a lot of work to do. And I'm not saying anything he doesn't know, right? But that is the delineation between a guy who can make some throws and do some really even incredible things. But if you can't do it on a consistent basis, then it's pretty worthless when it comes to trying to win a championship, right? Which is what it's all about. And I do think Jordan's got all the ability in the world. We've certainly seen plenty of instances of it. And we've seen how special he can be. But making special plays and being a great, consistent player are pretty different things. All right, buddy, I'm going to have to get going. I cannot thank you enough for hanging out, talking Packers each and every day, Monday through Friday, right here on the Cheesehead TV social channels. Please do me a monster favor. Hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel, And then tell your friends and tell your family. Cheesehead TV, we are devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. Thanks a lot, everybody. Patreon members, Carry the G Club members, I'll see you at happy hour at the top of the hour. The rest of you, please hit like, hit subscribe. Thanks so much. Have a good night. Go Pack Go.